Welcome to Spotlight on Omega-6s, the essential nutrient for smooth starts. Today we're going to explore what are Omega-6s and where are they found in the diet, the key research findings on Prequel with Omega-6s that's fed in that close-up period, the why behind the impact we see on Omega-6s, and lastly end with a quick math example on Prequel. So what are omega-6 fatty acids? Well, let's start with the basics that fatty acids are the building blocks of fat. Omega-6s specifically play a role that is beyond energy, not the basic energy source, but really playing a role in immune system, reproduction, and milk as well. These omega-6s are considered essential fatty acids because the cow's body does not manufacture them on their own, so they must be fed. And often, omega-6s are found to be too plentiful in the lactating cow diets and not enough in that close-up period. So where are these omega fatty acids found in the diets? Omega-6s are found in alfalfa hay and silage, corn grain, distillers, soybean meal, cottonseed, whole soybeans. These are ingredients that are found typically in great quantities in a high cow diet and a lot less in that close-up period. And then if you look at omega-3s, found in fresh grass, fresh alfalfa, flaxseed, fish meal, fish oil, algae, they are not very plentiful in our lactating cow diets and typically a small amount in that close-up period as well. So let's look at the research, looking at the controlled research on Prequel to see what those findings look like. So number one, we see a significant reduction in NEFAs post-calving, which basically is a measure of the fat that is being metabolized off the cow's back early lactation, so lower NEFAs is better, improved embryo quality, and that increase in first service conception rates. If we first look at these NEFA levels, Energy 2 in this study out of the University of Florida was fed compared to Prequel in that close-up diet at equal amounts at that quarter-pound feeding rate. And so these diets were isoenergetic and isolipidic. And then they measured NEFAs after calving, week 1, week 2, and week 4. And as you can see, those first few weeks of calving, the NEFAs are much lower compared to just a regular Energy 2 fed control diet in that close-up period. This means certainly a better functioning liver, and we certainly see on dairies reduced metritis and ketosis. Now when you move over to the reproductive side, this is a study also out of the University of Florida by Jose Santos and company, and they looked at the percent fertilized structures and saw an improvement when Prequel is fed versus Energy 2 in that close-up period, and then looking at the percent classified as high-quality embryos, and a significant difference in those Prequel-fed cows, up 15 to 20% or so. Now, first service conception rate is one of the easier numbers to monitor on a dairy for those results with Prequel. And when you look at Energy 2, again in the close-up at a quarter pound versus Prequel in that close-up at a quarter pound, there was almost a 9-point difference in that first service conception rate. So why do we see these results very consistently on dairies that are altering that omega-6 to omega-3 ratio? Let's go back to the science behind it. So omega-6s are inflammatory in nature versus omega-3s that are anti-inflammatory. So really it's the balance of the two that regulates inflammation in the cow, or one of the factors that regulates inflammation, as well as the immune status. So when you have a ratio that more 6s versus 3s in that close-up period, it actually lowers that threshold for the immune system to respond, basically setting that cow up to be able to work through those challenges during transition much better. So now let's take a look at what that omega-6 to omega-3 ratio typically looks like in a close-up diet. So when we look across diets, they're typically somewhere in that 5 to 1 or less. 5 omega-6s to 1 omega-3 in the diet. And when you add Prequel, it brings that to 15 to 1 or greater which is a significant shift in that ratio of omega-6s to 3s. We've been very interested in fatty acid profile analysis at Virtus Nutrition, and so we started a project earlier this year working with nutritionists across the country, taking TMR samples and looking at that fatty acid profile, the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, in diets across the country. This data comes from that work that we've been doing, where we've got 61 dairies where we've done pre-fresh TMR samples, and as you can see, the line at this 15 to 1 is right there, and the herds that are already feeding Prequel in that close-up period are blue, and the ones that have no Prequel are gray. So you can see it's almost an exact line where you look at those herds feeding Prequel are greater than 15 to 1, versus most diets fed across the country are much lower in that ratio. So let's end by just looking at the economics around Prequel. So you may be convinced that the research is there and the science is there, but what is that cost versus benefit? And so if you look at the benefits, we've got a significant reduction in ketosis. If you have an example impact of 20% reduction, you're looking at that cost of $145 per clinical case and $85 per subclinical case, certainly a significant impact on the bottom line. Reducing metritis, this is one where I consistently hear folks after they start Prequel actually talk about that reduction that they visually see as they monitor cows over those next several months. And so if you look at that cost per case at $354, there's a tremendous opportunity to improve the bottom line and the health of those animals as they transition. And lastly, this improvement in first service conception rate is certainly a tremendous value, on average improving 5 points on that first service, and estimated at $56 per cow per lactation, just using a 32% first service conception rate times $35 per 1 point improvement on all services, and then multiplying that by that 5-point improvement. So you weigh these benefits with a cost of somewhere between $7 and $8 per cow for that 21-day period, depending upon where you are in which region of the country. It's an easy cost versus benefit where that return is somewhere around that 10 to 1. So let's finish up by looking at the key points to remember. So first of all, most close-up diets are too low in omega-6s to maximize transition performance as well as early conception rates. Just a quarter pound of Prequel in that close-up period can shift that omega-6 to omega-3 ratio to 15 to 1 versus the 5 to 1 that it is likely at. And for just $7 to $8 per cow in that close-up period, Prequel can deliver tremendous benefits in transition performance and early conception rates that far outweigh that cost. I appreciate your time exploring Prequel and the benefits of feeding omega-6 fatty acids, and if you have additional questions, please jump to our website at virtusnutrition.com.